morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Delighted to have you with us. And it's a beautiful Monday, and we'll get a little more volume going. And Trent and I are on time this morning, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
We both have reputations. Anyway, this is an incredibly special program for me. And we're talking to, let's see, it's been 25 years now.
Yes, it has.
Carroll County Commission. Mm-hmm. You stepped down from the commission last December, I believe.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And now you got a new job.
I do. I'm enjoying it.
So what I'd like to do is, on our first couple of segments, really talk about the commission, and then also in the third segment, we'll talk about education, Douglas County. It's a little school system just across the line.
Yes,
Oh, boy. A little bit of an intro. Trent North served as commissioner for Carroll County for 25 years. His longtime vice chair, I think he was elected 13 times. He oversaw an annual budget of $48 million, directly contributed to the growth of more than 3,000 jobs through negotiations and support of new and relocating businesses, served as liaison to Tanner Medical Center, and negotiated board support for construction of the University of West Georgia Student Center and Stadium Sports Complex. I'm not through. During that time, let's see if I can find it. During that time, he oversaw construction in Carroll County of the new courthouse, recreation complex, the expansion of the parks, the new 911 center, the convenience center system, health department expansion, the fire departments, the animal control, public works, and that expansion. Of course, the jail. Right, the Jack Bell Hotel.
That's correct.
Of course, now the GSP new headquarters oversaw juvenile courts, Lister Court development. Whew, that's a lot. But then it's been a quarter of a century too.
It has been.
Well, thank you for coming in. This is really a treat for me. How old were you when you took office?
I probably 22, 23. 25 years ago, 22. I'll be 50 this March.
You know, what's so cool about this is you're able to transition to almost a second career. Mm-hmm. And most of us average people, when we think about retirement, we think about go cleaning out the garage and we're just like done. We're done. But you're just beginning in a way. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. What in the world drove a 23-year-old guy in 1993 to run for county commission?
First of all, my undergrad was in political science. And I didn't because at that time, the local governments, in my opinion, they didn't communicate. The city didn't communicate with the county. And everyone talked about preserving Carroll County for the children. But the policies that were being implemented had nothing to do with Carroll County's future from my perspective, and it really didn't have anything to do with my generation. And I felt like my generation needed representation and the policies that were going to indicate what Carroll County will look like 50 years from now.
Well, 1993 is a little bit different than 2018. I can't believe I'm saying that, 2018. What things did you encounter in 1993 that are no longer present?
Wow. When I took office in 1993, Hardy Duncan was the chairman. We had 504 employees, and out of the 504 employees, we had only 4 African Americans working for Carroll County. I remember my first meeting on M.L. King holiday, and we did not close at that time for M.L. King holiday. And so there were a lot of great things going on in Carroll County, but I don't think that they were necessarily preparing us for what we are experiencing today. We didn't have organized recreations at that time. Our fire department was heavily volunteer. We relied more on the cities for fire, for a large part of the services we were required to provide as a county. And so everyone on the board at that time was old enough to be my father. And so there was a different ideology, except for Bobby Reed. Bobby Reed was the closest one to my age. But at that time, I think we were still trying to maintain in lieu of trying to compete in Carroll County at that time.
Did they talk to you like they were your father?
You know, they did.
Yeah.
The politics was a little different. I still remember I was a junior high school principal, and the first major conversation was who was going to be our county attorney.
Right.
And so I struggled with who Harry Duncan wanted to appoint. And so Harry paid a visit to my job, and I was a teacher at Carrollton Junior High School. And I guess when the chairman came and told you, here's what you were going to do, the expectation was you would do it. Well, I didn't grow up in that era. And so I remember saying, no, you can, appoint whomever you choose to, but if you go down this path, you will not have my support. And so the politics was different back in those days.
It's funny you mentioned Harry Duncan. So you've been in the tenure of Harry Duncan, Robert Barr, Jack Bell, Robert Barr, Bill Chappell, and now Marty Smith.
And yes, that's right.
That's right. So Harry, the way you mentioned things, the way things were done during Harry's time, is very different than the way things are being done now.
Yeah, they were all great chairmen, and they all led differently. And I would say they were what Carroll County needed at that time. For instance, when Harry Duncan became chairman, Carroll County needed to believe. And because of his prior administration, when he instantly took office, everyone just was automatically felt Carroll County was going to be good again. Mm-hmm. I remember the first thing we had to do was to raise taxes. And I was part of, and you're not supposed to say this, but I don't mind, we gave the largest tax increase in Carroll County's history. And once again, Harry came to see me, and he said, North, we've got to raise taxes. Our budget is $2.5 million short. And I remember we had a taxpayers association. They were complaining about us raising taxes. And I said, Harry, you'll have my support if you will silence them. Mm-hmm. They came to the next board meeting and blessed us raising taxes. Mm-hmm. Imagine the Taxpayers Association giving us the blessing to raise taxes. That's the influence that Harry Duncan had. When Jack Bell came, Jack strengthened. He was a little different than Harry. He was a little bit more generous to the employees. We began we increased public safety up under his administration. Robert was probably the best administrator. Mm-hmm. He understood government. And so up under his administration, we were able to preserve the quality of life for Carroll County. And then you had Bill Chappell. Bill was very smart. Now, some people struggled with Bill because of how he interacted, but he was very transparent. If he was going to do it, you knew. He didn't hide it. And then he was very smart. Marty is the last chairman, and he, I would say, is more of an employees chairman. He's doing a great job. He understands Carroll County. And so I think we've had I work with 5 different chairmen who all brought different things to Carroll County.
You often are heard referencing the employees and the constitutional officers and the growth, but that's always been an important part of your tenure there as a commissioner is taking care of the employees.
We have some awesome employees in Carroll County who are underpaid. If you want to protect the quality of life in your community, take care of your largest working force. In Carroll County, we don't understand that. And our largest working force in Carroll County, whether we want to agree or not, that's our employees. And we can argue and say that that's not the role of government. If your largest working force is poor, then your community is going to be poor. And so we have awesome employees in Carroll County. And I think great constitutional officers as well.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break, but one thing we definitely want to mention, today's MLK Day, and you were instrumental in bringing that about, observation in Carroll County, and today's the birthday, and there's a parade in a couple hours. So what's your thoughts on having had that kind of role?
First of all, Dr. King's contribution to this great country continues to live out even today. One of the greatest pieces of legislation I introduced was the M.L. King holiday. And I remember when we were having the conversation very quickly, I was encouraged not to make the motion because it was a controversial vote. And if we ever pull the records, it passed 4-3. And some on the board were infuriated with me because I chose for us to celebrate and take off for M.L. King holiday. That was probably one of the highlights of my career. Not because of me personally, because it sent a message to the rest of the country and rest of the state that we support diversity and working together. And diversity doesn't mean isolation, as some take it. It means value and respecting the differences that's made our country great.
All right, our guest this morning is Trent North, former Carroll County Commissioner, now Superintendent for Douglas County Schools. You can give us a call at 678-601-TALK, 678-601-8255, or give us a comment on Facebook Live. We'll be back with more after this word from Tanner Health System.
Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. We have the author of the new best-selling book, My Life as a Carroll County Commissioner, Trent North. Have you thought about writing a book?
Ooh, it could be a nice time.
Hey, I got you on that one, didn't I?
Sure did.
All right. Well, this is segment number 2. This is the Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walters segment. This is where I cry a lot. So let me give you those type of questions. Okay, looking back on 25 years, quarter of a century, what was your biggest accomplishment?
Wow. I would probably say my biggest accomplishment would be the Carroll County Sports Complex.
Really?
I got in it to do something for kids. Harry Duncan didn't want it to occur. And I remember the Board of Commissioners expressing, why can't they go out and get a job, and why can't they go out? And I remember the attorney saying legally we couldn't do it. I remember being an employee of the Carrollton City School System, having to work with Carroll County School System to make it become a reality. So every time I drive by that complex, I realize what it took for it to become a reality. So that is my single greatest accomplishment.
Okay, what's your greatest disappointment?
There is a real estate building outside of Fairfield Plantation. And I supported putting it because of a friend. And even though it is small, that was probably the worst vote I made serving on the commissioner. And I didn't always get it right, but every time I drive by it, going in and out of Fairfield, that was a decision that I wish I would not have made.
Now, why is that?
It's not for the area.
Okay.
It isn't. It was just a bad decision. And now you have this piece of commercial that's sitting out there. It was just a bad decision.
I think my understanding is we've got 2 candidates running for your seat. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give? Again, this is the Barbara Walters. Advice would you give to a newly elected commissioner?
That everyone who says they're for you, they are not. Everyone who says they voted for you, they did not. If they didn't know you prior to running to office, they're not supporting you. They are supporting the position you may have. So don't become arrogant, don't become complacent, and think that you're going to become someone just by running, or you're going to become someone if you win. Because once you leave that office, if you don't maintain a certain knowledge base, the same individual you were when you took office is the same individual you will be when you leave. No one remembers you immediately once your name is off the ballot.
Well, anybody who's listened to the show knows that I always talk about urban sprawl, and you're probably now the most qualified person to answer this question. What should Carroll County do to retain its character, its rural character, in the face of urban sprawl coming in from Metro?
I can tell you two things. I can tell you what we can do, and people aren't going to believe it. The way you decrease urban sprawl is to increase your taxes. People move to where land is cheap. And so the cheaper your land is, the lower your taxes are, you're going to attract a certain clientele. Take Peachtree City, for example. And so if you want to control it, you can't have Dollar General prices for your land and for your taxes. And that's just a reality. So what we keep trying to protect actually invites what we're trying to protect in. And Carroll County doesn't get it. And everybody wants, I don't want to pay any taxes. Don't raise my property taxes. I don't want to pay for this. We don't. And then don't be surprised when people in New York and they're trying to figure out where to relocate, or people who are receiving different benefits and they choose to come because things are cheaper and taxes are cheaper. So I would say the first precursor to reducing that is to increase your taxes.
But then how do you keep a watch on local government if you increase your taxes, not to be wasteful with that additional revenue?
Well, and that's a good question. The way you've got to have people who are in charge of government who understands that it isn't their money. See, the two are separate, and that's the problem. We try to lump cheap prices or cheap taxes with being a good steward, and the two are completely the same. You've got to have competent people running your county, and you've got to have competent people managing your money, and as taxpayers, you've got to hold them accountable for being a good steward of taxpayers' dollars. That's one silo. What we charge in levy is a different silo. Our problem is, in the IT business, they recognize that you can't have the two silos together, and in Carroll County, we try to put both silos together, and that's doomed for failure.
Okay, let's see if we can try to get this caller on. Good morning. You're on the Community Voice.
Hey, this is Bobby Reed. I just wanted to call Trent.
We've already talked about you.
What?
We've already talked about you.
Oh, have you? Well, I just heard a voice I thought I remembered in the past. Yeah, Trent has been a wonderful person for Carroll County. And Douglas County just don't realize what contributions he's got ahead for them. You know, he uses his head in all his decisions, and Trent's just a tremendous fellow. He stayed in office longer than anybody else up there, probably as long as Harry Duncan did as a sole commissioner. Yeah.
So how long were you on the commission?
I served one term.
Oh.
I served one term.
Bobby, this is when people would ask me, and I remember one time it became a reality. I consider Bobby to be a personal friend of mine. And they said, if you couldn't do something for your mom, who would you call to help? And one day my mom got stranded and I couldn't get to her. I don't know if you remember this, Bobby. And I called you, and you went and assisted her with getting her car running. Bobby's a good friend. Bobby and Sherry, my wife and I consider them personal friends of ours.
We do the same here, Trent. I just want to congratulate you on your new position you got. And I realize that's going to be a stepping stone. You'll probably be a legislator someday.
You'll probably be governor someday. How about that?
Well, that's a possibility, too. I just know he's a stepping stone man, this second step.
Well, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate that.
Congratulations, son. I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Okay, Bobby Reed. Well, that was nice. We've got Derek Newton on Facebook says, thank you for all you do, which is nice. And
Derek is a great guy. Thank you, Derek.
Carlos Underwood says raising taxes can be a good thing. So we'll come back and do a whole program on that. You open up a big can. But we got too much to cover to get locked down on that. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. We're going to talk about education with the new superintendent of Douglas County Schools, Trent North, after this word from Tanner Health System.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host, and we've got an incredibly special program this morning that we have Trent North in studio. And we're going to talk about education now. Trent holds a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in educational leadership from the University of West Georgia. He earned a specialist degree in leadership and curriculum from Lincoln Memorial University. He was appointed superintendent of the Douglas County school system effective June of last year. He worked in education in the Carrollton City School for the last 26 years, most recently at Carrollton Middle School, where he served 2 stints as principal for a total of 7 years. Other school positions include serving as founding principal of New Horizons Alternative School, assistant principal, Carrollton Elementary, teacher of history and government at Carrollton Junior High, and a paraprofessional. He spent 5 years as director of community affairs, program compliance, human resources, and race to the top for Carrollton City Schools. Now I'm going to take a breath. So, education, big part of your life.
I believe that America's greatest secret is our education. Education allows individuals like myself who grew up in the projects, who grew up poor. It gave me the opportunity to become who I am today. Now, nothing is possible without God. And so I'm just a strong believer that education is a great equalizer.
Well, tell us, as you reflect, I want to talk about Douglas, but also I want to reflect just a moment on your time at Carrollton City Schools. What are some of your memories there?
You know, I graduated from Carrollton High School, had an opportunity to come back, to return and be a teacher. And so I have fun memories of Carrollton. Fun memories of Carrollton. Carrollton is an awesome school system.
Now, if I understand this correctly, Douglas County Schools has 20 elementary schools, 8 middle schools, 5 high schools, and 2 specialized high school programs, right?
That's correct.
26,000 students and 3,500 personnel.
That's correct.
Including Andy Mickshon, who was there.
And he's doing a great job.
I know he is.
I love Andy.
And, you know, this is somewhat bigger than the University of West Georgia, am I right?
That would be correct.
That would be correct.
Yes, sir.
That's a monumental task.
You know, when I first got to Douglasville, some of the concerns of the citizens of Douglasville was whether or not Douglas County was too large for me. And it took me 4 weeks to realize that it really wasn't. Here's how it works. When I worked for the Carrollton City School System, I was over personnel. And with personnel, we have a term that's called allotment. That's when we share with the principal how many employees they're going to have. To make a long story short, one person in the city of Carrollton does 5 jobs. In Douglas County, I have a full-time employment. What I would strongly encourage larger districts, if you really want to hire a good superintendent, hire one who comes from a smaller district, because their understanding of the organization, in my opinion, is a little bit more in depth than the larger districts.
Okay, sounds good. We've only got a few minutes left. Oh, by the way, Holly Presnell says, Trent, you're a good man.
Oh, I love Holly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah. Okay, looking back, and you can jump back into education, you can jump back into the commission, or just in general service in general. What would you say has been your greatest blessing this last quarter century?
Wow, my greatest blessing is becoming superintendent of Douglas County School System. I don't mind telling you, graduating from Carrollton, it was my goal to be the superintendent of Carrollton City School System. And when the Carrollton City School System was going through their selection process, they narrowed it down to two candidates, Dr. Albertus and myself. And the board struggled whether or not the superintendent should be Dr. Albertus or myself. And when I didn't get it, that was the first time not getting something that I felt like I was qualified for. And I went through about a 4 or 5 day, what could you have done differently? Was it me? Was it the board? And I always pray about everything. And I went into prayer, and God said, this isn't what I have for you. And I never knew what God had for me. And so I had to do a good job where I was. I had to, my faith got stronger. I was moved from the board office back to the district office, from the district office back to the board, which some saw as a demotion, and it was really a promotion because I was asked to do it. And then Douglasville came open. And then I put my name in the hat for Douglasville once again after prayer. And so the territory that God provided for me was actually larger, better. It actually better fit my skill set. And so for me, I had to remind myself that the walk I take, it isn't mine. Mm-hmm. It's a journey with God. Mm-hmm. And so even though I may want to be somewhere, or I may want to do something, it's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Whatever God has for me, I have to keep the doors open. And so some people thought I wouldn't move. We're living in Lithia Springs, and we're enjoying Douglas County, and we're enjoying the school board. And we haven't looked back since May 31st when the announcement went public. Yeah. So for me, always abiding by the will of God and always doing what he has for you and giving 100% of it. And he will always take care of you, always take care of you.
Our guest this morning has been Trent North, currently the superintendent of Douglas County Schools, longtime friend of these radio stations. Mm-hmm. We salute you, and we're grateful for your role in our community. And we I think it's okay to ask everybody to pray for you in your new position, because it's a daunting task. And so with that, God bless, and thank you for coming in this morning. And thank you for listening to the Community Voice, brought to you by Tanner Health System here on WLBB Carrollton.